You're listening to Dubwise or Otherwise with your host, Philippe Simon. Today we're talking to Louie Fleck, recording artist and musician from New York City, one that I played with many years ago and has a lot of music, original music and dub music. And you're listening to WMCB LP Greenfield. I want to welcome everyone to Dubwise or Otherwise with your host, Philippe Simon. Today, we're going to be dedicating our entire 2-hour show to the music of Louie Fleck, who recently has a latest project, Epiphany Machine. I'd like to introduce you now to Louie Fleck. Could you introduce yourself and say hello to the reggae audience out here in Western Mass?
Hello, everyone in Massachusetts. Thanks for listening today. I'm Louie.
All right, Louie. Tell me a little bit about Epiphany Machine. What are some of the influence? It sounds like it's mostly reggae. There's some definitely very interesting influences in there, and somewhat of a psychedelic approach on some of the songs. And I find that really interesting and really gratifying as a reggae music listener. Could you tell from your mouth what our audience could know more about how you did that, why you did that, who you did it with?
Sure. Well,
and if aliens are involved, then please let me know.
Oh, aliens are always involved. But this album is like the fourth album I put out in a series where I finally decided to sing my own material. And because
I know what an incredibly talented songwriter you are, and for some of the songs that I've written, just a very few by myself, I followed the suggestions that you gave me, which is like stream of consciousness writing and then paring down and paring down and paring down. Do you still use that method?
Well, what's interesting about this record is that I changed my methods to do this record. And in the past, my way of writing was I would write lyrics first, usually, and then I would sit down, I would like refine the lyrics. I would try to write many more verses and choruses than I needed, and then I would edit them down and try to throw, just kind of like make them better and better in my mind. And then I would sit down with a guitar and try to develop a melody or find chord changes and use the chord changes as a way to write the melody. And then I would have the song structure, and I would usually work up a demo where I would record into the computer with MIDI instruments or otherwise and develop the song to a certain point. And then once the song was at a certain point, I might try to get other people to record it with me. And that's what happened on my first solo album with songs was called First Taste is Free. And that one I had done in my home studio. I had written all these songs and then I demoed them up and then I recorded them again. And for the most part, used drum samples, drum loops, but then I played bass and played guitar and would get an occasional guest to come on. But after that, the next two albums I did live with live musicians. So I wrote the songs in a similar way. I wrote the lyrics, I wrote the melody, I had chord changes, I demoed them. Sometimes I demoed them several times. And then I would teach them to the group of musicians that was going to record. And they were like world-class reggae musicians in New York. And so...
None but the best.
The best of the best. I was so lucky to get them to come in. But also, when you have the best of the best, you don't have them for a long time.
Right.
So I set up sessions where I have a studio here. You can see there's like there's a drum booth over there. I think you can see it. And then there's the amplifiers, there's an organ, there's all these amplifiers, and even a sitting area for the guests.
Oh, excellent! Yeah,
yeah. It's a far cry from the studio that you rehearsed in. But anyway, so then what I did was I set up sessions. I basically set up a weekend. I cleared out a weekend. The drummer would come in a day early, and we would mic the drums, so the drums were all ready to go. The bass player would come in the morning of Saturday and then get the levels for the bass player, and the keyboard player was set up. I have a Hammond organ in here, so I mic'd the Hammond organ. And then I was in this vocal booth. You can see, I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, I can see the window.
Yeah, there's a door and a window over there.
Yes.
So there's a vocal booth. Now, it's not 100% soundproof, but it was enough that I could stand in there, play my guitar, and sing a scratch vocal. And then these great musicians would play, and we record maybe 3 or 4 takes of each song with a click track. And then they go away, and I would be editing these tracks for the next year or so to get the basic tracks, you know, really nice. And then I would add instruments and add other musicians, horn players, and so on.
Is that how you did Epiphany Machine?
No, Epiphany Machine was different. So what happened was in the year before Epiphany Machines, in 2019, I had a big flood in my studio. It destroyed my mixing board, and it just made a whole mess of the place. So I went through this whole process of rebuilding my studio, and I was working with an outside consultant, which was like a big deal for me to hire somebody to help me. And then
is that an undisclosed and secret location somewhere in Tribeca?
No, I'm in Brooklyn now. I live in Brooklyn.
Oh.
So anyway, I had this consultant help me redesign my studio so that I wouldn't need a traditional mixing board. I use a different type of mixer called a summing mixer. And I can get into the technical stuff if you're interested. But the basic idea is that right about March of 2020, my studio was done, rebuilt, and the pandemic hit. And so I had this beautiful studio and nobody could come and record. So, but I wanted to check out now I had like all this equipment that I had replaced. I'd gotten rid of all the bad equipment. And so I wanted to experiment. And so I just started recording music without any idea of where it was going to go. And then I realized, I have a melody, and then I had a lyric, and then I wrote. So I kind of wrote backwards. I wrote the music first, and I had to do most of the parts myself. There was a lot of synthesizers on the record, which you might have noticed. And there was like one tune that I had written a long time earlier that I redid. And there was one song I had recorded for my last album that wasn't ready. So that one was added. But basically, that was a different approach. And I think it shows in the way that I wrote, because I ended up writing a lot about either the pandemic or the displacement that comes from it.
Right.
It's a shame, it can never be the same, and I can't take the blame. I ain't coming home. In my gut I feel it, should've known it wasn't right. All too good to be true, I got framed the other night. After all we've been through, the price you pay to play the game, I'll take those back roads, I guess I'll have to change my name. to disappear. In case it isn't clear, I'll take this exit here. I ain't coming home. 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 I'll go to Canada. I'll go to Mexico. Where that road leads me is where I've got to go.
You're listening to Dubwise or Otherwise with your host, Philippe Simon. Today we're talking to Louie Fleck, recording artist and musician from New York City, one that I played with many years ago and has a lot of music, original music and dub music. And you're listening to WMCB LP Greenfield. Yeah, that reminds me of what we here at Greenfield Community Television had to come up with a lot of alternatives to keep things broadcasting. The outdoor roped off press conferences with the mayor, that was easy. That was outdoors, or it was in a humongous room, everybody was masked, and with air filters and all kinds of precautions like that. How do we get people into the studio? We are standard definition, or I guess HD definition, but not like real HDMI or anything like that. Those cameras were put away. They were getting old anyway. And we got a laptop, 3 robotic cameras and a controller and a color corrector, and just hooked all that together. And we had a studio where people could walk in, and the person who was switching for them wouldn't have any contact with them. They would be completely secure. And then we had like positions distance far apart so that one person could be interviewed and sit there and interview the person sitting over there at the other side of the room, and try to make it look like there's intimacy there. And the same thing with the radio station. And what it did for us is it kind of reduced the amount of television productions that we could do. However, it increased the number of radio productions we could do, because people simply all they had to do was download a free Audacity program, and then get MP3s off of YouTube or wherever, or even buy some, and then put together a show right there on their own computer, and then send it into a Dropbox that we had set up for them. So the pandemic was interesting for people doing recording and broadcasting, because we had to come up with so many different ways to keep the thing going. People were going to go insane if we didn't provide some programming.
So were
and
you
like what's that?
Were you working from home?
Actually, no. I had no computer access at home because I lived way out in the boonies then. And so I commuted into GCTV, which was solely me. And my coworkers were working from home because they had connectivity where they were. So it was kind of heaven. I would come into the Greenfield, which is the county seat, and I would, be in this empty town with like bunny rabbits and deer, walking through the city. It was great. I loved it. And then it was really sad when people came back.
Hey, little kitty, hang around my door. I know this kitty, what you coming up for? Sad little cries coming from her soul. She needs more than an empty bowl. Oh yes, hey little kitty. Oh no, my little girl. Hey little kitty. Hey little kitty, with your eyes so green, fur so dirty and you look so lean. It's a cruel world on a sunny day. This little kitty needs a place to stay. Oh yeah. Now tell me what you see. The night's so long, you can stay with me. Oh yes, hey little kitty.
You can stay with me.
My little girl. Hey little kitty. That's super cool. That's sort of like my day job. I work at the Brooklyn Academy of Music and in their archives, and I was alone as well in my space. I was happy. I loved it. I loved having nobody around.
Yeah,
What
and I
does
think I
that
remember
say
that.
about me?
That was one of your characteristics. I think I remember back when we were working together.
Which one?
You really liked being. You wanted us to just record the music, and you wanted to go home and edit it all, and mix it, and be alone. And I have to ask, and I was going to save this for the end of this interview, but I'm going to ask now. I can't remember that beloved cat that you had. What was his name?
Itty. Yeah.
Itty. He has passed on, I imagine.
Yes, he passed on. Yes. In fact, there were several other cats after him that have also moved on. But yes. Now
Okay,
I don't have a cat now, but I do have an enormous collection of original cat paintings.
That's great.
Which you can see on my website, LouieFleck.com, along with a bunch of other wacky stuff.
Great. I wanted to ask now, I'd like to play like 2 or 3 tracks from Epiphany. What would you recommend?
I probably would recommend The Usual Suspects, because that one is kind of like, I don't know, it's got everything. It's got a horn section. It's got some super special guest stars playing solos on it. So I'd probably recommend those 2 to start.
Great. All right. So let's take a listen to Louie Fleck's latest album, Epiphany Machine, the tracks I Ain't Going Home and The Usual Suspects. And we'll be back with more interview with Louie Fleck.
Hens won't lay, cows don't milk. This sow's here, it ain't made of silk. Oh, it's the usual suspects. Dig a hole, plant them seeds. Comes the fall, you harvest weeds. Oh, it's the usual suspects. What crops there are dying in the sun. If it don't rain, I'm gonna sell my gun. I say, no, 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 it's the usual suspects. All I can do is drink that rum. Gonna torch them fields when the locusts come. Whoa, it's the usual suspects. Tractor's old, the plow is broke. When that barn burns, everywhere is smoke. Oh, it's the usual suspects. They robbed the bank, there was no alarm. I rolled them bones, I lost the fall. Who can I blame? The usual suspects. I've been low and I've been down. I don't know why I still hang around. Perhaps it's time, perhaps I should get on that train while the getting's good. I knew a girl, she struck me blind. She found my heart and I lost my mind. Whoa, it's the usual suspects. Every story's got a man to tell. If I get to heaven, oh, what the hell? Whoa, it's the usual suspects. The sun may shine, but not round here. The clouds will pass, but they reappear. I got the weary bones and howling feet. The cop says move to another street. I can tell you plain, I can sing it straight. Don't you think I've got enough on my plate? I say, no, 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 it's the usual suspects. I say, no, 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 it's the usual suspects. I say, no, 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 it's the usual suspects. window, stay inside.
The new normal.
Strap in for a rocky ride.
The new normal.
Don't look, don't leave.
The new normal.
Is a field of grazing sheep. The lines are drawn, but the path ain't clear. Close your eyes and you disappear. Can't keep up with the cost of living. What the hell, my friend? You might as well give in.
The new normal.
Is a divide and conquer machine.
The new normal.
Is right there on your laptop screen.
The new normal.
It's not so great for everyone.
The new normal.
Take the cannoli, leave the gun. Is there somewhere safe for me and you? End of the world we thought we knew. A destiny right by design. Same old story with a new punchline. Here we are in a hopeless war, while the selfish work so hard to crush the poor. The machinery is so well disguised. It's no surprise we're hypnotized.
The new normal. The new normal.
The new normal is arriving right on time.
The new normal.
It is the perfect crime.
The new normal.
Is so old and warm. The new normal is a goddamn unicorn.
The new normal.
Is brought to you by the deaf, dumb, and blind.
The new normal.
Is the daily grind no one seems to mind.
The new normal.
The new is apparently
The new normal.
is looking like
We're back with more interview with Louie Fleck. And let's talk a little bit about Louie's origins, where you grew up, what your musical influences are, your band experiences, and so forth. You're a real New Yorker.
Yeah, I was born in Manhattan and raised on the Upper West Side. And of course, in my generation, you know, the Beatles were the biggest thing and the only thing. And so I grew up, I remember my mom used to drop me and my brother off at the movie theater where they had nothing but Help and A Hard Day's Night playing. And we would watch them over and over again must have seen them dozens of times. So that was a super big influence. And then as I kind of started playing later, definitely later than my brother. And I was just playing guitar, and I was really into rock and roll. And I put together an original band called the Dinette Set that did a bunch of rock and roll songs. And that was in the early 80s. And then I got the reggae bug. And then, and so I tried to get other people to play reggae with me, and that's actually how the reggae jam started. I would just invite people over and say, okay, we're going to play reggae. And at the beginning, we were mostly playing Bob Marley songs or Bunny Wailer songs, you know, the songs from The Harder They Come. And then I, on a lark, moved to Los Angeles. And when I moved to Los Angeles, I just ended up playing in a bunch of different little reggae bands in LA and meeting a lot of people on the scene. And LA had a big reggae scene, big American reggae scene, probably because they had all the beaches and the you know, that kind of tropical culture or desert culture at least. And then when I came back to New York, because I was going to lose my apartment, I was caught subletting it, and which, you know, in New York, you can't lose your apartment. So I came back and I hooked up with a friend of mine who owned a recording studio, and he said, well, I need you to help me run this recording studio, which really meant just coming in and hanging out with him and smoking joints. And then I slowly learned how to engineer.
Is that legal in New York now?
What?
Is that legal in New York like it is in Mass?
It was, which part? Smoking pot was not legal then, but it is now.
Yeah.
But of course, I'm, you know, I don't know, 30 odd years sober. But anyway.
Congratulations.
But so I was learning how to record. I was interested in reggae music. I was finding people to play with, and then I had this reggae jam, and from the reggae jam, all these different bands developed out of it, including the one that we were in together, which was called The Motives.
Talk with me. Is it really all
next. But you're a perfect pixie, too damn good to be true. So hey, where did you come from? And by the way, what's wrong with you? Clearly I am damaged, right down to the pores. Though I'm kind of functional, despite the countless flaws. I'm a lonely kid, set free in a candy store. It's virtually real, all I want is more. I'm easily seduced, you know that's nothing new. So hey, where did you come from? And by the way, what's wrong with you? We fall into each other like a hand in glove. It's shocking to discover that's what we call love. I can't believe my eyes, the circus is in town. But they're not here for long and the walls are coming down. The evidence is lacking. Seems my hands are tied. I don't know what's true anymore. And the jury, they won't decide. It's written in the cards, those wheels of karma turn. The stars are all aligned so we can crash and burn. When you rush to judgment, it's like someone I thought I knew. So hey, where did you come from? And by the way, what's wrong with you? And when we've had enough, the time has come to flee. Looking for a brand new place to stake your misery. I see on the distance a spark that one can hear. Where did you go now? And then I say, what's wrong with me?
You're listening to Dubwise or Otherwise with your host, Philippe Simon. Today we're talking to Louie Fleck, recording artist and musician from New York City, one that I played with many years ago and has a lot of music, original music and dub music. And you're listening to WMCB LP Greenfield. And when you started playing reggae music, what was the scene like? Did you go to jam sessions at clubs too,
Um,
or anything like? Was there anything like that happening?
it wasn't, no, really.
So you were mostly the host.
Yeah, because I had basically engineered my life in order to have some kind of a rehearsal space that eventually became my recording studio. And so it was just easier. So like I was happy to host the reggae jam. And we at one point we had it going, every week. It changed what day it was on, but it was such an interesting thing by having it going every week and then connecting with these different people. Sometimes you would get the most amazing musicians would pass through. Other times you get people who had never played before and you'd be teaching them how to play a piano chord or something like that. And it was a great experience. I met all these people, and I'm typically quite shy. I'm not that outgoing. People would ask me to come to a club and I'd go and I'd always be in a hurry to leave. And so it wasn't like I wasn't socially outgoing as you or other people. And I like the idea of containing it in my home. Sometimes there were weird moments as a result of that. Sometimes people would show up that you didn't necessarily want to come back. And we also had, for a while, we had like a New Year's Eve party every year, and that could be kind of crazy. But there was a lot of great music that happened. Also a lot of crappy music, to be perfectly honest. But it allowed for people to experiment. Like for me, it allowed me to clarify what I liked. Like I knew that I wanted to try to make a live situation which was able to develop like dub effects, like to be able to play in a dub style in a live band, which is not necessarily typical. And then
it's not, Louie, and I'll tell you, I have a few people who I work with very closely in bands, and they understand the necessity for that. They grew up listening to the music in that way. And it's something that not everybody has and is familiar with. And it's the best thing to teach others because it makes the most difference on stage when you have the keyboards cut out and the bass and drums going with some vocals over it, and the keyboards coming back in, different, and there's so many different combinations that you can do. And I'm sure as a recording artist, you've probably played with just about every combination that you could in dub. And speaking of which, is there a dub song on this album that you would like to play at this point?
I'm going to leave it to you.
Or a dub song that you've made.
I'm going to leave it to you because, as you know, the first 11 tracks on the record are vocal versions, but the second 11 tracks are dub versions, and they get pretty trippy. I think they might get a little trippier as you get closer to the end. So maybe you should start with one of the early ones. But I'm going to leave it to you because
you know what? I'm going to start with one of those trippy ones because I love that stuff.
Okay.
So maybe one and one of each, but I'll pick something out nice. Ladies and gentlemen, folks, you're listening to Dubwise or Otherwise. We're here with Louie Fleck, professional musician from New York and a longtime reggae musician and recording artist. We're talking about his latest album, Epiphany Machine, and we're going to give you a couple of dub versions of some of those songs. So stay tuned. and you're listening to WMCB LP Greenfield. listening to Dubwise or Otherwise with your host, Philippe Simon. Today we're talking to Louie Fleck, recording artist and musician from New York City, one that I played with many years ago and has a lot of music, original music and dub music. And you're listening to WMCB LP Greenfield. I'm gonna default back to like when I knew you in New York, and you were talking about the jam sessions. Were through those that you met Milo, Rebecca, even Larry or Laurie, who calls himself Toussaint now, and or Paul Flacos, who I still see on Instagram publishing wonderful pictures of motel signs all the way across the country.
Yeah, well, the jam really developed before I went to California, and it was really a kind of experimental place. It wasn't, it was really, at first we were playing these Bob Marley songs, but then I started to throw in originals. And then when I came back to New York, and I had met Larry in California because he was good friends with the bass player in one of the groups I was in. And when I came back to New York, we hooked up. I was working at this recording studio and he came by to visit, and we ended up doing some recording, but we really became friends. And
He's a great guy.
He's an amazing
He's just
guy
a ball of positivity
and a great
infects everybody
talent.
all around him.
He's
with
a great
joy.
talent, and he's also he played with Eka Mouse. He's a member of the Meditations now. He was originally a keyboard player for the Meditations, and now he's one of the singers in the group. And he at the time he was working in the neighborhood that I lived in, where the loft was. And so he would come by after work, and sometimes the jam would just be me and him. I'd be playing bass and he was playing drums because he never got an opportunity to play drums. So we would do that. Then we would invite someone over. We'd invite Paul over. Paul was a friend of mine. Then we had this friend of mine, Rich and Famous, remember Rich? And he was
Yes. Oh,
playing
yes.
keyboard and guitar, and he would be there and he would come and he would play, and we would say, oh, well, let's try this song or let's try this song. And he had a bunch of songs. I had a bunch of songs. And then we had done it, we had been jamming and we had kind of developed the set, and we said, okay, let's make this into a band. And so we auditioned some singers, and at the auditions I think we put, I don't know if it was Village Voice or probably we put an ad in the Village Voice or something like that. And then we got Rebecca, and we auditioned a whole bunch of people. We got one guy that was like, I don't know, kind of sounded like Freddie Mercury. Then we ended up getting rid of him, and we auditioned Rebecca, who was just this great female vocalist, had incredible pitch and talent. And then at the same time, we also auditioned Milo, Brian Lowe. And Milo is from Barbados, and he really comes from the reggae culture, and we just decided to keep both of them. We just asked them, how would you both feel about being in the band?
And what a great combination they were.
It was amazing because they really balanced each other out. It was sort of harkened back to maybe, wasn't there a band called The Selector that had a female singer and a male singer?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, and from the second wave ska generation. Anyway, so we played around with that. We didn't stick with just reggae. We did a little bit of ska, and also Milo came into the group with some songs, and so we had a couple of jams which became songs, and then I had a lot of songs that I just, whenever we needed a song, I had more to put forward. Some of them made it, some of them didn't. Then Rebecca started writing, and Paul, everybody had contributions. And so, and we were struggling for so long to figure out what our name should be. And I remember that at that time, I guess the OJ trial was going on, and everybody was talking about, well, what's his motive? What is his motive? So
wow.
We finally agreed on the name, The Motives, and I think it's a pretty good name still.
Yeah, it is. It was a name that I was proud to bear. You're listening to Dubwise or Otherwise with your host, Philippe Simon. Today we're talking to Louie Fleck, recording artist and musician from New York City, one that I played with many years ago and has a lot of music, original music and dub music. And you're listening to WMCB LP Greenfield.
So you don't complain now, baby. I wanna turn off that part of your brain now, baby. Have a sandwich or something sweet. I don't care, but you should eat. You'll be feeling warm and fine. Try a glass of this red wine. I wanna make it so you don't complain now, baby. Break those chains and set us free now, baby. I wanna pull you close right next to me now, darling. I've been here so long, it's true. I'd like to end up someplace new. Under the covers, no one's right, no one's wrong, at least tonight. I wanna break those chains and set us free now, baby. There's no time left to rehearse. There's awful days and others worse. Some days are not so bad. Don't drive yourself completely mad. Take a while, so let it be now, baby. I say we all make mistakes. You can repair the heart that breaks. I thought our future was secure. Oh, honey, don't slam the door. Wanna see you smile when you see me now, baby. I wanna make it so you don't complain now, baby. I wanna break those chains and set us free now, baby. we get, then there were still shifts. At one point, Rich left the band, and we got that guy David Kaufman from the Nails, who was part of an 80s band that was pretty well known. We had Douglas Guthrie, sax player, who was also very talented and a very unique personality. But eventually, I think Milo had to move. I think he ended up moving to Paris, and then Rebecca decided to move back to Iowa, where she came from. So the band kind of fell apart, but not until we had done a tour across the country. We had gone to a big festival in San Jose and played a bunch of gigs around San
The
Francisco.
Reggae Ambassador Worldwide and the California tour, which was
Right.
the most delicious food I ever ate in my life. And it was so much fun and relaxing to be there. And I will never forget stopping at that beach on US 1 or 101 that was completely enshrouded in fog.
Wow. I'm not sure
We were
which
just
one
there for
that
like
was.
15 minutes or something, and it was just a lot of fun. I'll never forget that tour and how unfortunate we were to perform at the Reggae Ambassador Worldwide exhibition in San Jose, California. And I applaud you and all your logistical know-how, you and Paul, and how you got everything all across the country. And so you
Thank
made it
God.
easy.
Paul
Yeah,
had a Jeep, and
yeah.
Rebecca's father lent us their caravan. So yes, we got very lucky there with that. That's for
Yep.
sure.
And then we had that Iowa tour. So I don't want to embarrass myself anymore, but could you tell people how you found me? Because there's a story to that too. And
Well,
it has
maybe
to do
you
with
should tell us, because I
it
remember.
has to do with the refrigerator.
Okay, I'm drawing a blank. I
So
remember coming to your apartment. I think did we play first in your apartment
no, I don't think so at
on
all.
14th
What
Street?
happened was you called me because I put an ad out in the Village Voice 2 years before that and said, if I'm looking for bands to play with, or any band that needs a drummer, I like, it's reggae for me. And you called me. You kept that ad on your refrigerator for 2 years,
Oh,
and
wow.
and then and then you called me, and then we started playing together.
That's amazing. Oh, and that reminds me, we also had Philip Glass's son, Zach, in our
That's
band.
right, Zach Glass. Okay.
Right.
And then Marcia Davis was
That's
working with
right.
us too, and she's fantastic. I'm a Facebook friend with Marcia, with Larry Toussaint, and a few other people that I worked with in New York, like Lynn Strong, and you might have even done something with him, um, and David Reed and others.
Well, the
Um,
reggae jam still continues,
that's
actually.
great.
It's just not in my home. It's been Larry and Simone have joined forces to bring the reggae jam back, but they really are focusing on vocalists right now. So
Simone,
Simone Gordon, I think she,
I met her. Yes.
oh yeah, she's a great singer.
Yeah.
She's always
And
touring.
then there's Simon Des Etage.
Right. And I don't remember where he came from.
Whose father was the background singer in Kung Fu Fighting.
Oh
And
my
he had
God.
some Motown hit that he wanted us to cover.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, right.
I'm
Well, the
bringing
thing,
back more memories than you have stored, I guess.
no, I've got a lot of memories stored. I don't know that I have them in the right order though. But there, what was interesting about the jam was that it always led to something else. Like when the Motives ended, there was another band. I think it was Bubble. Wasn't that the
Hmm.
one with
Yeah.
Simon? And then when that ended, there was, it always went into something else. And there was kind of like a regular crew of characters that included the people you mentioned, Marcia, Simone, Larry, Lindley, a bunch of other people. And that's still going on. So,
Do,
and it kept going on when I moved into this place, which was about 14 years ago. We had, as soon as I got the studio built, we had the jam going on once a week for, up until the pandemic, basically. So it went on for a while, and a lot of different people passed through. Sometimes, like I said, rank amateurs, sometimes incredible musicians that were not well known, and sometimes famous people like Ducky Simpson or McKitty or Johnny Clark came through. A bunch of legitimate big reggae people passed through also, which was always like, wow, this is incredible. Let's get a photo. That kind of
That's
thing.
great. We're going to play some more songs. And if I can find something from the Motives, either recorded or live, doesn't matter to me. I would love to play a few songs like that to bring back some of those memories and let people know what you were doing around 1999, 2000. And then we'll be right back.
This road I always took, and now I have returned. And when I turned to look, I saw that I'd been burned. It's not for me to say, we have all been through hell. Until the end of the day, you can never tell. Sand through fingers slip, I traded pearls
Another funny story. A lot happened to me when I was in that band, and they were really amusing and interesting things. And do you remember the time that Marcia came upstairs and said, "You won't believe, you guys won't believe this. You won't believe who I just talked. You just won't believe this." And she wouldn't tell us. And she said, "You have to go downstairs." So me, I think it was Paul, you stayed in, and Simon Desatage. Oh, and Andre, the guitar player.
Oh
You
yeah,
remember Andre?
of course. What a great guitar player.
Yeah, he was excellent.
Yeah.
He was Dominican, from the Dominican Republic, and he lived in the Bronx, I believe. Just a very decent, nice human being and a great guitar player. So we all marched downstairs and we found out kind of like who it was, or that it was somebody famous. So we did this thing where we exited your apartment or your loft, walked straight across the street where that supermarket was, I think, and then walked up the block to the next intersection and then crossed and then came back as if nothing was happening.
And nobody noticed.
There,
that.
sitting in Spartina, was a private luncheon, Robert De Niro and Harvey Keitel.
Oh
And
my
they were
God.
like, and Robert De Niro watched us do this thing. And he said, "Harvey, who are these guys? What the is that all about?" And you know how he speaks. And I heard that. I thought it was just absolutely amusing that I actually get to. That's life in New York. You walk by famous people all the time. And it was almost as rewarding as the time that I saw Jane Fonda in front of the Time Life building, I think it was, near Rockefeller Center. And I said to her, I said, "I really appreciate what you've done in your life, your work, and your politics." And she's like, "I don't get to hear that every day. Thank you." You know?
That's a nice response. That's
Yeah.
great. That's great.
New York is like that. It's just, that's the way that I felt about New York. And one of the reasons why I liked it so much and stayed so long, it was 9/11 that made me kind of like say, enough. But I liked it because everybody was on their path and you were on your path. And you were walking next to each other. You were riding the subway together. You were entering and leaving buildings at the same time. And you know what? There wasn't any feeling like, I got to be first, you get behind me. It was like, hey, we're all on this. We're all on a mission, you know? So let's do everything we can to get everybody through. And I miss that about New York.
Oh, it looks like your
Still
DJ
like
is
that.
coming back.
Yes. Is it still like that? Yes, there are aliens here.
There are aliens everywhere. Well, then that should lead to one of our songs, I think, from oh no, that might be a good one for the UFO song on NYC Reggae Collective.
to insult me, but insist that I'm wrong. We better do something before it's too late. I was taking some from out back of the shelter. Then I thought I heard a cell phone, so of course I turned my head. It was around grade disc. It weren't no truck or no plane. Just because I take a drink or two, it don't mean that I'm insane. Maybe a secret, but it won't be for long. Documented sightings now in almost every state. Need to insult me or insist that I'm wrong. We better do something before it's too late. The government is acting like they don't care, like they really don't know what's going on up there. Those bureaucrats keeping files on codes like me, saying I'm a threat to the national security, but that's ridiculous. I'm just trying to help. I snuck up on the mothership when those bastards weren't around.
Those bands.
All those lights and buttons and that damn annoying sound. Dr. Denton's laying on the floor, saw all I needed to see. I wasn't gonna stay in there and let them get inside of me. It may be a secret, but it won't be for long. Documented sightings now in almost every state. No need to insult me or insist that I'm wrong. We better do something before it's too late. We got to take a stand. We got to make a defense. We got to move quickly. We got to spare no expense. We got to get some weapons if we wanna stay free. I'm saying you got to take me seriously. Here they come. No stopping them now.
So how do we get in touch with your music? How do we get to experience it, listen to it, download it, buy it, whatever?
Well, I would love it if you would come to my website, louiefleck.com, LOUIEFLECK.com. And there, if you come early enough, you can check out my Kickstarter campaign for this record. There's one amusing video, kind of a parody of a Crazy Eddie commercial. Some people will know what that means. And there's another video on there of another original song I wrote during this period, but it's not on the album. So I put together a video about what the late 70s and early 80s Greenwich Village was like.
Oh, that's
So that's
wonderful.
kind of fun that you can check out on Kickstarter. After the Kickstarter is over, it'll be on YouTube. So there's, I'm in all the usual places except not Twitter or Instagram because I'm too old for that. But I do hope you come in and check out the music on the website. There's some free music. There's links to all the other albums, and I really appreciate you taking the time, Phil, to talk to me and check out the record.
It's a real honor. I had a wonderful experience playing with you. I know there were some frustrations and upsets, but I think it was all worth it because I learned so much from that experience, and I was so proud to work in a band with you, Louie Fleck, as well as to work in a band that was a modern reggae band, a modern, new, up-tempo reggae band.
Well, it was great working with you, Phil. And you know what? I probably was much more of a jerk than you ever were. So I apologize for that in front of everybody. You
Oh
have
my
a
goodness.
recording now, and you know, it's been a long time. I've learned a lot. Hopefully, I've hopefully mended some of my ways, but I'm still a pretty stubborn guy. I doubt that's going to change. And I hope you keep making music and writing songs, and I'm going to do the same.
Great, because that stubbornness and that perfectionism is what's going to keep driving you to do more and more and more. And so there's a place for it, there's an appreciation of it. And professionals know that you have to put up with that from time to time. And so, in ending, I'd just like to say thank you. I'm really glad that we have reconnected here today. We should talk more often. I should stop being such a hermit and go and visit New York and visit you and Larry and Lynn Strong and David Reed and Pablo G and Sister Jackie and Curly, and the list goes on and on and on.
Well, I would love to see you in New York, and when you come to New York, I hope you come and visit here in Brooklyn, the studio, and you can meet my wife and
Awesome.
check out all the stuff. And you know, also I can send you some CDs or vinyl that you could give away on the show if you want.
That sounds great. That
Yeah,
sounds
just send
great.
me your mailing address, and I'll send that stuff out to you.
Okay, we'll do. Louie, thanks again.
Thanks for taking the time.
You got it.
Have a great radio show and a great reggae life.
Thank you. You too. Take care.
Bye.
Bye now. You're listening to Dubwise or Otherwise with your host, Philippe Simon. Today we're talking to Louie Fleck, recording artist and musician from New York City, one that I played with many years ago and has a lot of music, original music and dub music. And you're listening to WMCB LP Greenfield.
He's my kind of lover. Now I'm sure there'll be no need for any other. I've been around and I've seen enough. I'll settle down and begin to love the boy next door if he'll have me. He came along and I watched him grow. I've seen him come, I've seen him go. I've known bad and I've known good. I've checked out the entire neighborhood. I've seen him work, I've seen him play. In fact, I've seen him almost every day. Now that I know there is no shame, I will always feel the same. The boy next door, he's my kind of lover. Now I'm sure there'll be no need for any other. When we were in school, he was always there. Now he's not here, and I seem to care for the boy next door if he'll have me.
For the girl next door, there is a much I can give her, but I sense that she really likes my anchor. The looks in her eyes tell me she's a panther. I've gotta be quiet now, cause she's coming over. Who's there? I have no wire, and I really need to rinse my hair. Have no fear, there should be plenty in here, and I wouldn't want that stuff to stay in your ear. With a pretty face like yours, you should be glad. You should be glad, glad, glad. Yes, glad that I'm the boy next door.
He was kinda strange back in the day. I was very young, but now I want to stay with the boy next door if he'll have me.
I made made a candy and I made it sweet. Well, I gave it to you and asked how was it. You told me it was good but not so great. Well, I write this letter saying appreciate. Well, how you want, how you check me for? Me give you candy and you not lick your finger. How you try to tell me taste like water? You shoulda rub it on your belly then taste it after. By the way, forget me damn phone number, because me have a different feel about you. And that response that you gave me woulda make me go out and get a dancer. The dancer come into my bedroom, want me for a me turn a boom, but me have to tell the dancer leave me alone, because me got my woman down in me. Oh well, I made a candy and I made it sweet. I gave it to you and asked how was it.
The boy next door, he's my kind of lover. Now I'm sure there'll be no need for any other. I let him go, it's a mistake, 'cause what I have with him I can't fake with anyone but the boy next door. If he'll have me,
what you want? Yeah. This is Milo. Big shot executive face down in a pool. Wise guy detective on the way back to school. Samurai hitting men who live for the chase. Sneaker glad girl with a bag full of mace. Lee having a body and every defect. A temper face geek with a pocket protector. Every grave digger gets a ditch to be filled. Them rivers of blood that need to be spilled. Well, everybody gets what they deserve. 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 Everybody gets now don't they? Everybody gets what they deserve. Everybody. The banners and curling the casket is plain. If you're unlucky, do you get to skipping? Someone should have listened when I try to tell. But these days the good guys wind up in hell. Was it a mishap? Could it be suicide? If you knew the answer, then you would have died. The real burning question is who's next in line. Keep on counting blessing, 'cause I'm counting mine. Well, everybody gets what they deserve. 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 Everybody gets now what don't they deserve. Everybody gets what they deserve. Everybody. Well, there are no victims, wise up my good friend. Every choice made as a mean to an end. Only a soldier in battle can see the whites of the eyes in the true enemy. Bankrupt and bloody and chill to the bone. You all were so happy to leave me alone. There were no exceptions, there'll be none today. Now the whole world wants to see what I'm going to say. Well, everybody gets what they deserve. 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 Now don't they? Everybody gets what they deserve. The ignition, the wheel had to spin. Alone in my room, so what turned me in? To walking explosive, a well-oiled machine. A fiery guns I go, you all know what I mean. Well, everybody gets what they deserve. Everybody gets what they deserve. Everybody gets what they deserve. Now don't they? Hey, everybody gets what they deserve. Everybody gets what they deserve. Everybody gets what they deserve. Everybody gets what they deserve.
Gyal a wine, gyal a wine, gyal a wine, gyal a wine, gyal a. You fi jump and dance and no worry and fret bout what you think say the next gyal a get. Jump around, listen and see say Jah is the one where make you fit and healthy. Nobody watch, the man them a move, just jump around and get in a the groove and look how me nice, look how me look sweet. Cause me big, thick and healthy, I rock to the beat.
Loving is a sweet bubbling pot. I said the loving is a sweet bubbling pot. I said the loving is a sweet bubbling pot. I said the loving is a sweet, loving is a sweet.
Gyal a wine, gyal a wine, gyal a wine, gyal a wine, gyal a. Gyal a wine a waist in a timing with her feet. Man a jump up and step into the beat. Hot love, inna the dance all so sweet. Never knowing who is the one you're gonna meet. Bend down low and let him see you smile. Loving sweet melting pot all the while. Hot love, inna the dance all so sweet. So all a rude boy and show him how to do it.
Loving is a sweet bubbling pot. I said the loving is a sweet bubbling pot. I said the loving is a sweet bubbling pot. I said the loving is a sweet, loving is a sweet. Your loving sweet, it brings happiness. Your loving touch and your sweetest caress. When you are close, everything is so clear. Now you are far, girl, I wish you were there. To love me, touch me, squeeze me, get me in the right mood. Woman, you know you are the best thing to the home. And when you leave me, girl, I'm all alone. I'm just a playing my guitar and I sing a couple songs.
Gyal a wine, gyal a wine, gyal a wine, gyal a wine, gyal a.
Lick up pepper, sugar and spice. Lick it on the fire without the ice. Stir it with a spoon, pour it over rice. Lick a you, lick a me, mix it up nice.
No matter how them do you, still you know you are gonna make it true. So, why you got yo, don't bite it, oh, yo. Don't roll like flood, the mud has blood. The life left today, yeah, it is crud. Keep your head high is what your elders say. Don't you feel down and do loving is a sweet bubbling. I said the loving is a sweet bubbling. I said the loving is a sweet bubbling. I said the loving is a sweet, loving is a sweet, loving is a sweet bubbling. I said the loving is a sweet bubbling. I said the loving is a sweet bubbling. I said the loving is a sweet, loving is a sweet.
All girls and ladies of the world, if you know, say you're hot. You just shock out and dance to the beat. Catch the ride.